Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Design Flaws. This is episode 9. Today is just a pretty cool casual convo. We just kind of talk about some of what's going to happen in the future, what's happening now, and what the next plans are for, me and, just the country in general. So if you are tuning in, I thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man.
I can't do a good Joe Biden impression, dude. I can't even do a good Donald Trump impression, man. I'm not good at either of those things. I need to work on my impressionist skills. That's an important skill set to work out. I need to work on it. I need to be better about it. You know what I mean? I need to be better about that shit. Today's the 10th of January, 2021. What a great start to this year, guys. Just phenomenal stuff. I popped a couple Zyrtecs, a couple Z's. I popped a couple Zyrtecs because, Papa was feeling allergic, Papa was feeling a little allergic. And, let me see. I'm adjusting the gain on my microphone. I feel like this is too loud. Yeah, too loud. How about this? This is a little bit better. This sounds a little bit better. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I mean, shit. That would suck if that was the point of the podcast, was to just not hear someone. But dude, I don't know. I don't know if I'm feeling good. I'm not feeling bad. I'm feeling pretty good, I would say, overall. Something that cheers me up a lot is Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is just a pinnacle of intellectualism, and I'm not even being sarcastic. I love Jordan Peterson, and obviously you can tell, given my political positions, why I like Jordan Peterson, but he's fucking phenomenal, bro. He is absolutely amazing. Like, the stuff that he talks about and, like, the way he talks about it, dude, I don't, like, if you gave... One of the things I noticed with people, and this happened with my younger brother. Obviously, I love my younger brother. He's a fucking amazing human being. He's incredibly smart, and that's the problem with liberalism, is that it actually gets a lot of the smart ones. If you hear some clicking, it's because I'm clicking around on my computer. But liberalism usually gets a lot of very smart people, or at least like seemingly smart. Like, because the thing is, you have to keep in mind that they're only smart based off of the standards and criteria set forth by what is overall a liberalized education. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. I don't think anyone can really debate that, like, the education world is a liberal world. But, excuse me. Yeah, see, I still have some allergies. But, what happens is that a lot of times with the speakers like Jordan Peterson or Candace Owens, they're not in the same class of people. Candace is, like, outspokenly conservative. She's all about Brexit, which I'm all about. I fucking love Candace Owens, and Candace Owens is the most amazing person I've ever seen. Her ability to she just has powerful speech. I think that's the one person who I just overwhelmingly acknowledge has this powerful speech. She's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. But Jordan Peterson is actually, like, remotely centrist. I mean, not remotely, largely centrist. I mean, he really doesn't take any partisan side of things, and he doesn't really operate. He does more commentary on, like, Marxism and leftism, but he doesn't necessarily write so much about it. He does write. I mean, he did write some books about it, but he's more. He focuses on wellness and health, right? And he does it from a vein of, he's a trained clinical psychologist, a clinician, extremely credentialed man. And that's actually funny because I actually have my master's degree in clinical psychology. I'm not even fucking around with you right now. That's what I got my master's degree in. But I don't use that master's degree for dog shit. But it's a cool field because I think what it's able to do is highlight someone's predilections. You're able to highlight, like, once you map out the mind with regards to psychology, which is not a pure medical field. It's kind of like tangential to medicine. It's not really it's not neurology or psychiatry, although there's a lot of overlap with psychiatry and psychology. Psychiatry is largely more pharmaceutical based. You have a lot more pharmaceuticals and prescriptions that you kind of hand out and dish out. That's how you make a lot of your money. But psychology is, focuses with, behavioral therapy, different forms of interventional stuff. It's pretty fucking great stuff, and it's pretty useful. And there's a lot of academic field in it, and it is largely like any field. It's largely dominated by women and by leftists. That's super common. But something that I think what people make this mistake when they talk about, like, Jordan Peterson's name has probably been like that was probably one of the biggest trending names the year that he had all those fake scandals that were just like essentially character assassination attempts. And the entire time, all he really was doing was just having a discussion with different groups of people on. He's probably prevented more people from joining the alt-right than most academics. I even know. He's probably prevented more people from joining the alt-right than, like, racial studies academics. And so, and we know how bullshit, like, some of the stuff that all the critical race theory stuff we know is, we can disagree with that. We have the right to disagree with that. But, his entire premise is, it's just brilliant. Something I like to do when I'm feeling down is listen to him, because it shows you that rationality is actually fulfilling. When you think through things and you allow yourself to learn and you challenge each of your premises, you actually realize that you're happier about yourself, which is why I think a lot of libertarians are on average probably more happier than liberals, because instead of going with what is trendy and instead of using outrage in a trendy fashion, you at least apply it to some common parameters. So when, like, someone's property rights are violated, that's when a libertarian gets mad, right? But when someone suffers from a microaggression, no one is compelling speech besides liberals. Liberals are the only ones who want to compel speech, literally compel it. And if you don't believe me, just look it up. It's fucking happening in Canada. Your boy Trudeau is getting ass fucked by the Davos group right now. Trudeau is getting just fucking railed in the anus by the Davos group. This guy outwardly says shit like, we're going to use this opportunity to reset. Look it up, dude. Great Reset. Look that shit up. Look up what my homeboy Trudeau is saying, dude. It's insane. By the way, this is a comedy show. Nothing I'm saying here is meaningful or worthwhile. So before you mass report this, just please. But nothing he says is unique or original. It's something that ultimately, like, was part of an agenda that he pushes. And that agenda is a global one. It's a global agenda by the Davos Group, by the World Economic Forum, by Klaus Schwab. These are the people who are at play. The Soroses of the world. Look at how the internet just saved George Soros' reputation. They scrubbed the internet clean of Soros, and then he collabed with Reuters to write an op-ed piece about how great he is. Look at how good the Open Societies Foundation is. Look how great it is. Look at all the vaccines they're giving to African children that are dying. I don't know if that's true. I'm just assuming that's what's true, but I feel like so compelled speech, Canada, Jordan Peterson, that's where we were. Jordan Peterson, what I love about him is that he is non-political. He merely highlights irrationality. He merely highlights the psychological basis for it. And when you hear him talk, it's almost like a therapy session, because that's the type of guy he is. That's the type of person he is. His ability to make you introspect as opposed to find fault in others is a lot more powerful than your normal guy. That's why I think that when he talks about okay, the best interview that really just fucking is amazing is the Jordan Peterson GQ interview, and where it's the quote, he says, "There was plenty of motivation to take me out. It just didn't work," right? He highlights how this wasn't even his goal. His goal was never to be in the space of social commentary or political commentary. That's not what he's here to do. But he felt that I can't not do it because there isn't that many voices in the space, right? I'm pretty much leading the movement. And that is very true. There's always been conservative intellectuals that have pushed back on liberal bullshit. But Jordan Peterson is the only one who doesn't have outwardly staunchly conservative views. I would say at the most he's a libertarian. I would say he's pretty centrist. I mean, I don't think he cares that much about the politics of things. He more is focused on his work, and I'm sure he has a large list of clientele that he has to attend to. But some of the things that he postulates are fucking amazing. I mean, they're amazing. They're irrefutable, and the way he talks to people really turns them on their ass. Because, like in that interview, for example, there's like this dumb fucking GQ, you know, I don't want to say anything offensive, but she kind of sucks. Like, she's a shit interviewer, and she is trying to do what every major media organization does is they're trying to get, and it never works. Like, this guy doesn't miss. Jordan Peterson doesn't fucking miss. He continues to just destroy and demolish all this postmodernism with just the most absolute, like, calmness, cool collectedness, powerful words. He speaks he speaks in large sentences, right? But if you think about how much he's saying, it would take someone pages and pages of writing for him to say what he can say in a paragraph or in 3 sentences or 2 sentences. So, like, in that interview, the interviewer is trying to, you know, postulate a lot of nonsense to what he does and what his whole role is, and she tries to postulate a lot of leftist nonsense, and she calls herself a social democrat. And, you know, dude, what's crazy is in that interview, he talks about how the modern feminist movement is actually deleterious to a lot of women. Like, it does empower some, and there's no doubt that some feel empowered, but it's nowhere near a large minority or even a majority. It's a very small minority of women who largely end up being a little more socially rejected than others, and end up being a little more, mentally ill than others. I mean, they don't like, and he highlights this by saying, like, look at their ability to hold relationships. Like, if you don't have an ability to hold, I don't have an ability to hold a relationship either. So I'm not sitting here postulating that I'm somehow smarter or more mentally stable. I'm clinically insane. What I'm saying is that there is a correlation between, and this is I know you can't correlate everything in life, and you can't say everything is because of correlation, but there is a correlation between marital happiness, relationship happiness, monogamous happiness, and someone's radical femininity, like in radical feminist beliefs, not femininity, but radical feminist beliefs. So he highlights that so clearly to her, and he says that, dude, you live in a patriarchy that you claim, and you're literally working at GQ. You're in the top 1/10 of a percentage point of all humans ever, and probably in the top 1/2 of a percentage point of people on Earth now. And you're sitting here and claiming about this, and she claims that she has a right to complain, and he says, I understand you have a right to complain. I'm not saying that. But he basically postulates to her how she could be doing as well as she is if we were truly in a patriarchy. And he highlights things like, well, what consists of a matriarchy? Is it when the field is dominated by women? Because when that happens, it should be a matriarchy by definition, right? But no, it's not. That's not what we say. We say, well, it's an institutional power thing. And he says, well, what about fields where there's institutional power with females, right? And so he highlights some of these things that you're pushing back on postmodernism at its most minuscule points, because if you don't push back on that, then their postulation will allow them to postulate even further that, well, it must be because men are inherently evil, right? And so some of that male rights activism, people get really upset by it, but what that's supposed to be is supposed to be it's supposed to promote a conversation that is center-based and allows all sides to feel a certain way. When you set the status quo as women are always suppressed no matter what, and women are always right no matter what, then, well, you create a problem in all. You ill prepare a lot of people for legitimate. That's his whole point. The real world is not as kind as postmodernism, right? And not only will postmodernism lead to totalitarian rule, also postmodernism doesn't help for people who are going into the job market, facing career difficulties, mental health issues. It's not a real source of wellness. Telling people to participate in victim culture doesn't actually, I know it sounds like rocket science, but it doesn't actually help them. I know it sounds so insane, like, oh my goodness, but it doesn't actually help them. And so I always just wonder, like, why do people not watch Jordan Peterson? Because if you watched him and you just listen to him, and he makes it very easy to listen. It's not that hard. You don't have to be a fucking mad scientist to listen to Jordan Peterson. But all you got to do is listen to the guy, and you could understand, wait a second, dude. This is something that I should listen to. And you listen to it, you hear it out, you hear his points, and he highlights things to you, and you take him in for once, you listen to it again, and you learn it. You learn it slowly, and oftentimes you can trust his sources because I don't think he's ever actually been documented to promote or purport a false fact or a false finding or a false piece of research. Very well read, very well laid out and planned. What my concern is that there's quite a bit of, so what happens when you make it big in something that is seemingly controversial, and I use the word seemingly because in reality I don't think any of that stuff should be controversial. I think that expressing a dissenting viewpoint should not be controversial, no matter how offensive it may be. But a lot of journalistic entities, sorry, I'm rubbing my eye. A lot of journalistic entities and individual journalists really took it they really got rubbed the wrong way when he started popping off. Because to them, it was a sign that the market wasn't moving in the way that they thought. Because at the end of the day, we all are projecting, right? We're all projecting our idea of what the perfect world is. So when the market doesn't move in your favor and you criticize the market, well, you're just stupid, because the reality is that Jordan Peterson gets a lot of views, not because of alt-righters watching him, not because of alt-right people watching him. He gets a lot of views because a lot of people in the closet believe what he says. They believe that, no, America is not inherently feminist. And then you could draw some of those arguments to, because again, postmodernism. So you could say, well, America is not inherently racist. And you could say things like that. And so what a lot of people, what happens is that these journalists, these entities, these companies, they don't particularly like that Jordan Peterson is so well liked. So what do? They start running hit pieces because, well, he's not working for the establishment. He's just merely expressing a dissenting opinion. So they start writing big hit pieces. They say, oh yeah, Jordan Peterson and his ties to the alt-right, or, they say something about his transphobic comments, and they use postmodernist terms to continue to label him as things, which again, that's part of what he says. What he's been saying is, hey, stop doing this, right? Stop labeling. Let me adjust my microphone. He's saying stop labeling all of this stuff as these very, very modern, postmodern labels that didn't exist that long ago. Let's use typical rationale. Let's understand tribalism. Let's understand different elements of identity politics, and let's use that to have a common understanding of why there's a disagreement. But unfortunately, man, these hit pieces, they go hard. They're oftentimes riddled with misinformation and alternate facts that really have no basis. Talking about, something as simple as why Jordan Peterson's worthwhile follow. It's worth listening to him because it is part of red pilling. The first step of red pilling is listening to people like Jordan Peterson or Christopher Hitchens, or people who, they're different because, again, the super atheists aren't necessarily a lot better than anyone else, but because they're also super binary in their worldview and they have very little tolerance for alternate origins to humanity. And I'm not saying that they're right or I'm wrong or any of that shit, but I'm just saying that Peterson doesn't disclude or essentially rule out any opinion until he's rationalized it. So if you noticed, every time he says that's not true, he tells you why it's not true. And he does it not necessarily from a way where he has to really cite any research for it, although he could and probably does a lot of the times. He just does it in a simple way where you can understand it and it makes sense. And that's something that I have trouble doing that. I have trouble when I get into debates with people. I have trouble highlighting to them how, like, for example, abortion is ending life, right? And how ending life is murder, right? And that's not something that there's not a lot of mental gymnastics involved in that, right? There's more mental gymnastics involved in trying to rationalize when ending life is more ethical than letting life be. So, they start telling you things like, well, there's a low SES and low SES is a problem. And I said, yeah, I just don't like things that sound like eugenics. That's my thing. I'm just not a guy who likes that shit, and I'm sorry that I'm not that way. And this podcast is a little more calm. I'm a little more calm today. I'm more relaxed. I'm a little tired too. I didn't sleep too much last night. But, so it's not to say that, look, I'm not going to make any comments on what abortion policy should be. I myself am pro-life. That is just how it is. That's how it ended up being. But again, there's some of those things where you have to have some pushback, right? You have to tell certain people, hey, no, that's still ending life. And that's still there's no moral argument for ending life. I mean, there's a moral argument for ending life if that life has committed some other ending of life. But otherwise, there really isn't one. And even that moral argument it's getting slipperier and slipperier. Like, it's harder and harder to be tougher and tougher on violent criminals, not just because of the left, but even on the right. You're seeing a lot of people say, hey, I don't think we need to, torture people and, conduct torture experiments. And so, like, again, you're not conservatism and that lack of empathy. It's false. Assuming that someone doesn't have empathy because they're conservative is a huge fallacy. I can't tell you which one it is off the top of my head because my brain's fried, but I can tell you right now it's a huge, huge fallacy. And overall, my fucking friend just messaged me saying, ha ha ha, what the fuck? I'm talking to my resident about ecstasy. He was so open about how he did it, and I was like, LMAO, me too. Yeah, well, I definitely don't want to go to that resident. No, I'm just kidding. I don't even fucking care at this point. Healthcare is going to be free once the fucking Democrats pack the courts. So, I mean, not pack the courts, but once they have the majority in Congress. I don't know. We'll see if they force it to a floor vote. I don't know if they will because, establishment Democrats don't really like the idea of Medicare for all. And, I mean, there's a lot of pushback against Medicare for all that really, really puts it on its ass and just shows you how shit of a plan it is. But that's not what we're talking about today. I want to talk about Jordan Peterson, but I guess the point I was making with the hit pieces was that the hit pieces create a environment where people don't actually tune into Jordan to listen to what he says. They read what's in the hit piece and they say, oh, well, this hit piece probably is correct. He's probably a neo-Nazi or an alt-right sympathizer or whatever they fucking call him. And that's why he has to associate more with conservatives because, they're the other group of people who happens to be labeled those things. He actually himself, I don't believe, is a conservative. I don't believe he legitimately is a conservative. I think he legitimately is like a libertarian centrist type of guy, maybe just right of center. Still a very, very, very respectful person to people who identify with different genders and all sorts of shit like that. But a lot of times, I mean, dude, my younger brother was arguing with me. We were going back and forth, and I ad hominem him because he's my brother and he's an idiot and he doesn't know what he's talking about. So I just said, no, you don't know what you're talking about, dude. Like, and I said, who told you that? Did Bernie Sanders tell you that? And he's like, oh, who told you that? Did Jordan Peterson tell you that? And I was like, Jordan Peterson. I said that's kind of hilarious because Jordan Peterson isn't even right wing. Like, it's hilarious that you're trying to make fun of me for listening to Jordan Peterson because he's literally not even right wing. He's literally not even a conservative. He's literally a centrist. And you're trying to ridicule me for listening to him. So let's get this straight. I'm an idiot because Jordan Peterson said something, which hasn't been provably false ever. I think he's almost had a 100% track record of being accurate. I would bet money on 100%. I think that he's that good. And my brother was like, "Oh, listen to Jordan Peterson." What? What do you mean? Yes, Jordan Peterson's a great listen, and you should listen to him too. He'll break down some of those stupid postmodernist ideas you have. That's the point of people like Jordan Peterson. Is it's not to convert people to Christianity or to convert people to fucking being a conservative. It's to simply say, hey, here's the pushback on critical race theory, and here's the pushback on modern gender theory, and here's the pushback on compelled speech, and here's the pushback on identity politics from the left. Let's push these things. Let's push back on these things so that we can get to a more colorblind society where we're really not, we're really not looking at race anymore, and we're looking at more character and contents of people's character. But getting a little sleepy. But the underlying point here is not that he is like the supreme lord, although he's fucking amazing. And if you have one person you want to listen to, I'd start with him. He's the biggest part of the red pill, because the moment you red pill and you realize what's happening because you talk to Jordan Peterson, you start to realize like how many misleading, emotive, sentimental bullshit the left throws at you. And so, I told my brother, I was like, dude, it would do you benefit to listen to him, because he actually has a lot more advice applicable to young people than anybody else. Like my brother likes to like jerk off to Kyle Kalinske. And he likes to jerk off and like fucking, it's really weird. I'm like, bro, why are you doing it in the living room? And he's like, I don't know. I just can't do it in my room because Kyle Kalinske is just so hot. And it's just like, yo, Kyle Kalinske looks like a character from Ratatouille. What the fuck are you talking about? Kyle Kalinski's a fucking moron, dude. And so like apparently Kyle Kalinske. So this is what Kyle Kalinske said, which I realized my brother said it to me first. Then I realized, because this guy cites so much Kyle Kalinske probably said it, right? So Jordan Peterson is who he is. He's always been who he is. It's never deviated. I guess Kyle Kalinske made a comment saying that, this guy's economic policy wouldn't work. Jordan Peterson, like, libertarian economics doesn't work. You need government. Kyle Kalinske likes coddling the balls and sucking the shaft of big government. He reads very little. He reads very little into the bills that he talks about. He reads very little into the studies he reports. He reports pop science facts, pop physics facts, and he like I said, he likes to slowly work his way from the taint down the shaft to the balls of big government, specifically blue big government. And I mean just generally all big government. I don't think he has any actual sensible positions on anything really. I mean, I've heard a lot of Kyle Kalinske's Medicare for All and mandatory minimum wage arguments from my brother. And I was like, where have I heard this shit before? Because I used to be a flaming liberal, and Kyle Kalinske was like someone I listened to. And I was like, where did I hear this shit? And I was like, oh, it's Kyle Kalinske with Secular Talk, right? That's what this show is. And, he's like he's quite the character, man. He's quite the little snob, tomfoolery snob. And Tim Pool was actually talking about him, saying that Kyle Kalinske like made a comment on like what the farmland looked like or something, and Tim Pool's like, yeah, that's what farmland looks like. I don't really like listen. I don't like overwhelmingly like listen to Tim, but Tim was right. Tim said that Kyle Kalinski's out of touch and doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to anything outside of the city. And he's a kind of a city slicker. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. He is a city slicker. I mean, typically most of these people are. Most of these people have very little understanding of how like an agricultural subsidy is a lot different from like a green energy subsidy or a healthcare subsidy. And they don't get they don't understand like those, it's like a pseudo intellectual position where you cherry pick data and then you present things with a lot of moral superiority. And that moral superiority is supposed to get you farther than someone else's just simple talking points. Because when you think about debate, debate is not a public consensus mob mentality type of thing. Debate is very, very empirical. It is like you have to have facts, counter, and then you have to have things that negate facts that negate that fact, or essentially postulations, hypotheses, right? And then someone has to prove that hypothesis. Someone has to make another hypothesis and rebuttal. It's a very scientific process, right? And it's how we decide everything that has an incremental element, kind of like our voting tabulations, which fucking have incremental elements that weren't obligated. But, it's a very, science is like that too. So it's like, it's incremental, you work in bits and pieces, and then you get to where you need to go, and then you make, conclusions, and then you use those conclusions to further more research. So, Klinsky, all these guys, all these leftists. Pacman's one of the same. I used to like Pacman a lot, but Pacman leans so left sometimes. I'm just like, dude, you got to be a little more centrist. You cannot be so far left. Like, the Medicare for All is one of those things where, like, people who believe in it claim that there's never an argument that debunks it. But, you can look at wait times, which I know we have wait times in the U.S. I'm not saying that the U.S. healthcare system isn't requiring an overhaul and doesn't require some sort of help or some sort of, intervention. But the idea that, like, Medicare for All is going to be better is so disprovable, and it's so easy to do so once you actually take out some of the more misleading data that's involved. And I can't go over all of it right now, but I can just give you a hint that life expectancy and infant mortality are usually the biggest statistics that they say, well, look, these statistics are better in Europe where they have Medicare for All. But when you look at here, you have much higher of a chance of surviving critical illnesses, terminal illnesses, cancers. So medical innovation and the specialized system, like, because of privatized medicine, you have specialized care. You have the ability to... And so what's happening now is we government fund the specialized care in a private way, but there is overhaul you could make. You could, like, one thing I can agree on with Bernie Sanders is that administrative costs are too damn high, right? So I think that we can look into what administrative costs result in, and then we can, like, if you're running a private business, you eliminate waste, right? So I've always thought that, as a Republican, I think that I could get behind the nationalized healthcare system if we were talking about something that was very cheap and very bare bones and very basic, right? To me, I don't believe that everybody is entitled to the quality of private healthcare without, just by birth, to me, I don't think that's the case. I think that you're entitled to cheap healthcare. I think you should never be turned down for cheap and affordable healthcare. And if we could make healthcare so cheap and affordable that the taxpayer could pay for it, maybe, just maybe, I could get behind it. But like every bill that's come from the left, it's always been a more loss-prone, waste-riddled bill. And it's not something that I think has any... Medicare for All is, and I think we'll do an episode where I debunk Medicare for All and I go through all the data, but Medicare for All is not a sustainable, feasible plan. It will, it only promises drug price reduction, which, while Donald Trump has actually reduced drug prices when you account for inflation more than any other president or more than a Bernie, but Medicare for All is a plan that saves most of its money from slashing physician and nurse reimbursements. It doesn't make a dent in the administrative cost. The administration is still very protected in Medicare for All. And what you look at with private insurance, and you look at what's happening with Medicare and Medicaid and a lot of this entire healthcare lobby and healthcare insurance or health insurance lobby, what you see is, dude, you see a deeper alignment with bigger government and more red tape around some of these price fixes and some of these, like, there's more limitations on how goods and services are distributed in the current system. And I think that if you leaned more into the market, you would genuinely find cheaper solutions for a lot more people, and you would inherently cover more people. 100% health care coverage does not mean 100% health care recipients, or health insurance. 100% health insurance coverage doesn't necessarily mean you're all getting good health care or quality health care or any health care for that matter. You could be a recipient of Medicare for All and not ever go to the doctor, and you could be a recipient of Medicare for All and drink yourself into a coma and then want a liver transplant. So I think that there is a beauty in private insurance, but I think private insurance lobbies have spoiled that, and I think that there's a way to walk it back to where you can actually create a society where private insurance is cheap and private insurance doesn't have crippling deductibles and the prices are not fixed and there's an open free market and people can go in at the rate that they want to get paid, and then you can actually maintain a supply and demand. And that's something that, Keynesian economics and all these partial postmodernist theories that go into a plan like Medicare for All, that's why they don't work. And what makes you wonder is, why is Bernie such a big proponent of this, right? Bernie wants to raise taxes I think he's going to make people who make make under $29,000 tax exempt, which is kind of insane to me, but I think taxes are shitty across the board. And, I think if anyone needs a tax cut, it'd be people who have less money. So, I mean, I have some empathy there. But again, I'm not a liberal, so I do like some consistency across the board. That's why I like the Trump tax plan, cut taxes all across the board, still requiring taxes from people who earn less than, $40,000, $50,000 a year. But if you look at any other, 29,000 is not, it's a lot of people who make under 29K and under, but also a lot of people make 29K and over. So it only further implements a progressive redistributive tax system on people who are, doing a little more. And this point, it's not even upper middle class or rich, the wealthy. Like, what even the fuck is the wealthy? It's not that. It's just middle class people. If I made $60,000, $65,000 a year under Bernie Sanders' presidency, I would pay more in taxes. And I just don't think that that's necessarily the best way to go about it. Hey, you know what? I think that I'm glad he'll never get into fucking office. He's too old and he's, borderline mentally retarded. And I think that he, doesn't have any of the balls that like people like Donald Trump had to stand up against the establishment. But his plan is getting his plans do get pretty, people cling on to him and kind of slightly modify and adapt them and then kind of propose those plans in Congress, whatever the fuck. So, I mean, I just don't know. I think there's so much pushback when you look at like all the other statistics around healthcare and you get out of the subjective polling opinions of people's healthcare. Like, of course, if you poll Cubans will tell you they think they have better healthcare than the fucking United States. Polling bias is ridiculous. And the idea that like people are only like, I just don't get this whole fucking charade, man. Like, this whole charade that Medicare for all is going to save 1 trillion lives. Like, it's not. And it's not been proven to, and I mean, dude, private healthcare is very important, man. Like, and I think that what we should do is we should incentivize the private healthcare industry to clean up some of their actions, but while maintaining some of that medical innovation and that medical technology. Because when you look at how much of their profits are reinvested into drug development and then how our drug development helps the rest of the world, I think we export like 70% of all of the medical innovations and drugs that, human scientists work with. So, I mean, I think that when you look at that, like, there is some benefit to that. And the medical debt assessments are, I think medical debt is bad, and I think that there should be something. Again, I can always get behind something that lowers the price, deregulates the market, and allows more people to have access to something at a good price. But I can't get behind mandates of any sort. So I can get behind less rules, or at least like some more sensible rules that help, providers and healthcare companies, that help them, kind of do whatever it is they need to do. But I think that it has to be competitive. Otherwise, you will see a quality drop and you will see prices rise, right? And that's what happens in Canada, is that it while they don't spend that much on healthcare spending compared to us, while they don't spend that much on healthcare spending compared to us, yeah, I'm fucking getting the Z's, bro. They do spend quite a bit. They don't have a military. They don't have a lot of other things. And in fact, we subsidize so much of their research by paying the money for it. So it's not really something that you can truly put into you can't compare, is my thing, And when you look at how we fund hospitals, how hospitals get subsidies, we have EMTALA, we have emergent care. And I guess part of this uninsured shit, these uninsured numbers include the undocumented population, which they don't pay into anything anyways. They just pay sales tax. And I've heard some undocumented people make that argument that like, oh, well, I pay taxes, I just don't get any benefits. Like, you pay sales tax. Like, I pay sales tax in a lot of places, but it doesn't mean I should be getting any benefits. You know what I mean? Like, I could get a tax reimbursement from some countries. I've seen that happen. I've traveled to Europe and they've actually reimbursed me for the taxes I paid there, the sales tax. So I think that that's definitely possible. But the idea that sales tax allows you lawful standing and gives you government entitlements, I don't know how I feel about that. That sounds kind of fucking stupid. I don't know. So I don't know. I think that some of those things, so like Candace Owens, Jordan Peterson, these are people that if you don't listen to and you just hear what is said about them, then yeah, you're going to like have a very, very skewed opinion. But one of my buddies, man, he's a good friend of mine. He's a medical student. Woo! Fuck, dude. Yawning today, boys. I'm going to have to wrap this one up soon. But one of my good buddies who's a medical student is actually a, like a libertarian type. And he watched Candace Owens. And, dude, he was, like, texting me saying, bro, I think I've been red-pilled. And I was like, holy shit, I'm happy to hear that, right? I think... And I was like, wow, like, what did it? And he was like, dude, Candace Owens. And I was like, yeah, bro, Candace Owens is fucking amazing. She's phenomenal. And why she's phenomenal is because she has the innate ability to direct point it. Like, she can answer to things very directly. She doesn't have to, mingle her words or anything. She can very clearly say, hey, this is what's happening. This is what's not happening. And so I was like, yeah, bro, she's 100% right. Thomas Sowell, all of this shit, George Orwell, this is all exactly what's happening. So I love Candace. I love Jordan Peterson. I think if you don't watch them, you should watch them. If you're a liberal, I think you should watch both of them. I would like an exercise to be conducted. I want you, if you're so convinced that all of them are alt-right, like sympathizers or whatever the fuck, or like, like white nationalist dildo producers or whatever the fuck you guys have today as a label, I would like you to sit down, watch one of their videos, and then try to disprove any one thing that is said, because you're not going to be able to. At no point will you actually be able to disprove any one thing that either of them say. Candace herself is not an anti-science person, although people like to tell her that. She's anti-science in the sense that, yes, science has liberal biases and communist biases, right? By the way, this is communism. This is not... Like, this is Marxism, communism type shit. This isn't really just like a liberal conservative thing. So when you look at Marxism and you look at this like culture shift and this entire civil war that may be brewing, I'm not calling the violence, calm down, it may be brewing. What it tells you is that, yeah, I don't think these people on the left are really concerned with peace. I don't think they're really concerned with helping out anybody. And frankly, I don't know if they want to actually show any respect to dissenting viewpoints. I don't think they do. I think that what they're going to do is they're going to start going harder and harder with this shit, and then eventually it'll reach their own people for being Trump sympathizers and not even Trump voters, but just kind of retroactively, after the fact, are Trump sympathizers. They'll get banned too. They'll get kicked off. Dissident opinions will leave. Something I've been seeing on Instagram from a lot of Caucasian females, adolescent Caucasian females, is they've been saying, oh, well, why banning on Twitter is not the equivalent of a free speech violation. And I'm like, bro, the whole Twitter as a private company argument doesn't make any fucking sense. If Twitter has a deep alliance with the government, if Facebook has a deep alliance with the government, if they're donating money, they're exchanging money hands, they're not paying taxes, they're avoiding taxes, they're writing off assets, Facebook invested $350 million into the state of Georgia, no taxes on any of that money, right? You're looking at all this alliance between big tech, specifically Twitter, Facebook, and Google a little bit, actually a lot of it. You're looking at this big, crazy situation where big tech is essentially going to be the arbitrator of truth, give you the right to speak. So some of these things should be alarming. They are Orwellian. We talked about in the last episode how this is all Orwellian. And those companies, because of their government interventions, or because of the interventions they've received from government, whether it's a subsidy, whether it's this, whether it's that, those companies should have. You see, that's very resemblant of state capitalism to me, right? These companies are very resemblant of state capitalists to me because they operate with political intention, right? So they're as much of a state capitalist organization as TikTok is, And no, there's nothing good about state capitalism. Private ownership would imply that, well, you have to take liability, you have to take a lot of different actions to make sure you're not liable. And on top of that, private ownership would show people like, that, okay, well, I'm not playing any particular side, so I get to keep all my profits, I get to do whatever I want. But these people play a side, they curate it, they edit it, they do all sorts of things that make people more outraged than normal. And so that's something where, Section 230 is a Communications Decency Act from 1996. It's clearly outdated, and it was never meant for big tech social media companies. They need a different section. They need something that allows them to have unmoderated content, but also doesn't necessarily put them in trouble and does have some sort of basic, like filter. Like, I think that there's some argument that you could take some people off Twitter, but again, I don't believe. I think that there should be. We shouldn't be using our power to silence anybody. I'm sorry. I know that sucks, but you should use your voice to criticize that person. So if you get more retweets on your voice to criticize someone else, then you will get more credit, and that person will have to ultimately concede. But when you ban someone, all they have is, well, look, I've always known you're intolerant. So it's one of those things where you got to have some sort of consistency. And if you don't have consistency, well, you're living in a fucking totalitarian state at that point. The one that operates on behalf of certain political actions and certain political willpower. So I don't know what the solution is here. I don't really know. I think that what they're trying to do with Parler is pretty sad. Like, I think that Amazon trying to use their clout to turn off Parler is pretty unfortunate. I mean, like, there's so much more, like, you know, kitty nudes and like you know, CP and crime and drug trafficking and some evil shit that goes through Gmail than there is that goes through Parler. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's probably more crime that goes through Gmail, more CP, more more drug trafficking, more violent crime, human trafficking, sex trafficking that goes through Gmail and Google web servers and other AWS web servers. So my thing is, it's obviously biased. It is political persecution. One of my friends who is a conservative said, well, they're a private company. I said, look, if they were totally private and they had no alliance, or they're completely viewpoint neutral, I would have no issue with that. But they're not viewpoint neutral. They're very clearly not. So they shouldn't be allowed to operate under Section 230. So Section 230, if you guys don't know, it's a part of the 1996 Communications Decency Act that allows platforms to not take any sort of legal ramifications for. So, for example, if you're on AT&T, right, and you are a Hezbollah lieutenant and you conduct a hypothetical attack on AT&T, right, then that would be something that AT&T would be protected from, right? I mean, given that there wasn't utter negligence, right? You know, so there wasn't a total blatant violation of terms of service. So that's something that AT&T could clearly say, okay, well, look, we're not responsible or liable for that, right? But that only works because AT&T doesn't curate anything. AT&T doesn't ban people or censor people or put people away because of any particular viewpoint. They usually will use actionable intelligence. So if you are doing something illegal that's very bad and very threatening to the public, well, intelligence agencies and these people will already have a tab on you and they'll be able to know what's happening. And so, not that I'm essentially okay with that, but, you know, so when you look at Twitter is a heavily regulated red tape business. They don't pay taxes. They have deep alliances with the government. Facebook has deep alliances with the government. They've gotten tens of millions of dollars in both of their foundation from the government. Google had a huge angel investor in Incutel, tens of millions of dollars in their first round of investments from that one company. So I think that when we're looking at all of these different companies and these social media tech giants, right, they are subject to antitrust litigation. That would, if any other company was that big, we would apply the same rules to them. And if any other company was basically fixing the market on public discourse, we would apply those same rules to them. And there is like civil settlements that can be gained from this, right? Twitter, this would be a first time that Twitter has really been sued, but if there's a lawsuit on the way, then it could be big. It could be serious because, again, you cannot market yourself as a Section 230 platform and then apply your TOS, in a biased fashion, right? It's not necessarily illegal, and I get that argument, but it is unethical, and there could be damages and settlements that could be had because of that. So, for example, if like Uber's policy hurts you, right, some way, shape, or form, you could sue Uber and a court could make Uber pay you, right? So some of these things I feel like people, when they look at Section 230, you guys need to look at it from the view of like AT&T. How does AT&T operate? AT&T doesn't curate things. AT&T doesn't push you content. So if Twitter, Facebook, these kind of companies want to have open left-leaning biases, well, they need to establish themselves as journalistic outlets, and they need to establish themselves under a different rule of law and not under Section 230. Because what happens with Section 230 is that, well, because it's a broad, wide open platform, they get tons of users and registered subscribers. So in reality, if they had to authorize and be accountable for all the content they post, you would have a more sacred and open public discourse. Now, I would like these big tech companies to have some elements of Section 230, but there needs to be provisions in it which don't allow them to apply their TOS in a discriminatory fashion. That's the biggest thing, is that when you're discriminating based on anything, right, there's always room for more ethics and more justice in that scenario. So I think you'll see that happen in the next few weeks. I think you're going to start seeing some lawsuits. Robert Barnes is talking. I don't know if any of you guys watch Viva Frey and Robert Barnes. Amazing show. I recommend you check it out. I don't know why I'm promoting their fucking podcast on my podcast. Listen to my fucking podcast, you motherfuckers. But they're, I think there's going to be a lot of stuff down the pipeline for Parler and Parler's suit against, some of these big tech giants. I don't see it going crazy well, but the Trump team themselves could make some lawsuits. I think that there's a decent possibility that banking services and financial services try to pull their support of the Trump team and essentially, make it difficult for the Trump team to collect any money. So I think that we'll see what happens. I think that you're going to see some pushback. And I know this is a dark time because of the Orwellian stuff, but do realize that this only makes us go towards revolution and freedom faster. The sooner that we get over with this culture war, the better it is for everyone. The more tolerant everyone will be. So I think that that's going to happen sooner or later. It's not going to be something where it takes too long. I mean, it'll take probably 10 to 20 years. I mean, it's not going to be fucking overnight, folks, but it's going to be something that's relatively quick as opposed to the broad scope of history, because I think we have more means to go quicker and more efficiently now. It's not going to take like 50 years to emancipate a certain group of people or 100 years anymore. It'll be quicker. And no, I'm not comparing anything to slavery. Shut the fuck up, you fucking idiot. You fucking moron. But I mean, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of merit in the whole the censorship argument, and people are trying to say, oh, well, Trump broke the terms of service. So look, the terms of service were very subjective to begin with, and again, it's not a private company if it operates on behalf of the government, right? Just because the CIA technically is privately funded or a PMC is privately funded, they still are doing the bidding of the federal government, so they do have to abide by some rules and regulations, right? A PMC does have to have some respect for the rules of engagement. They can't just go and do crazy shit, and when they do, there's a huge ethical liabilities there, so they have to be careful about that. So Twitter might technically have all the authority to do so, but the idea that there's no civil backlash for that in a civil court is silly. There is, and there may actually be something decisive that you see comes out of a courtroom in the next few months or maybe half a year. I don't know how long it'll take for them to do such a thing, but you can expect Taiwan to be invaded. You can expect Hong Kong to be invaded. You can expect China to regain some of their global power that they lost. Di Dengxiang is a really nice guy who, he sends people pics of his butthole and tells you how the CCP is going to take over the world. So he's a nice guy. I don't see anything wrong with that guy at all. He tells you how his butthole is nice and bleached, his little Asian butthole. And so I think that there's a good chance for, but I'm not completely pessimistic or defeatist. I do really believe that the movement's bigger than ever, because you can't do what happened with Twitter and what's happening with conservative accounts being purged. You can't do that unless you're trying to stoke the flames of the fire, right? You can't enact domestic terrorism law, which is what Joe Biden wants to do. They want to try to prosecute Trump, impeach Trump, do whatever the fuck they want. I did see that the House Republicans did make a formal request to Biden to stop the impeachment bullshit. But I don't know how it's going to happen, because the thing is, the Biden administration obviously wants legitimacy, and the only way to get legitimacy is to make Trump look worse and worse. They're already trying this with this whole false flag bullshit storm story that they're just trying to like run. I mean, they're still talking about this shit as if it's anything fucking happened. So it's like, you know, apparently Nancy Pelosi's office had a laptop stolen. It's kind of funny. You know, I wonder if like someone cracks, because the thing is, dude, like if this was a false flag, they must have knowingly put all of their stuff, you know, in plain sight because Mo Brooks said we had intelligence this was going to happen. So, you know, if this was a false flag, then some of these things would basically, they would have known would be stolen. So unless it was as accidental and it was one of those things where they're like, oh fuck, like my laptop was stolen and realized I left it in the fucking chamber hall before the CIA briefed us on the false flag. You know, that's one of those things where like, hey, I want to know what's on that damn laptop. I want to know where the bodies are on that laptop because I feel like that laptop's going to have some pretty interesting information. Like another, like kind of like the Hunter Biden scenario. But then again, Nancy Pelosi would be like, oh, it's a QAnon conspiracy theory. It's a QAnon conspiracy. So it's fucking ridiculous. Apparently, Gab's platform, the free speech platform Gab.com, reported a 753% increase in traffic in 24 hours. Trump is going to visit the U.S.-Mexico border to highlight the border wall progress. That's going to be cool. I hope that's televised. I'd love to tune into that. You know, let's see. Parler CEO is prepared to take full legal action after big tech company target platform. See, the thing is, I just don't know how he's going to do it. We're talking about going. The thing is, I don't see combating them as a way to go forward because they've made their biases clear. They've told you that, hey, our government is letting us do whatever we want. We're under Section 230. We're making hand over fist and cash. We don't have to have followed by any conduct of ethics or any sort of ethical regulations as a conglomerate this big. We're not going to at least get any antitrust litigation from the left on these companies. So, I think that you know, the best way forward is fundamentally get out of AWS, create your own internet protocols, buy your own server space, crowdfund that shit, buy the servers necessary, hire the staff necessary to maintain this platform. I like Gab a lot because Gab apparently owns their own servers, but I think they need to buff their servers. Buff your servers. Make them bigger, make them better, make them faster, make them DDoS proof. Because you're going to be, again, each time you do something in this space, you're going to face resistance, right? You're going to face people who are going to try to shut you down. That's what's happening with Parler. It would have been very easy if President Trump just went to Parler, right? He couldn't. He couldn't do that. Why? Because there was clear, you know, I mean, I don't know, clear like intention to take him out and to take out this whole movement for freer and less approved speech. So they're obviously policing some of these regulations in a one-sided way, and you know that's one of those things where, again, private companies, private rules, but again, discrimination. You are allowed to sue people for discrimination. By the way, so Robert Barnes will talk about this more at 6 p.m. on his show, 6 p.m. Central. But there is a lot in store. And the movement is really just getting started. President Trump was absolutely right about this. We're just beginning, and I love to hear that. It warmed my heart to hear that because that's the truth, man. This isn't going anywhere. None of this stuff is going anywhere. And I'm sorry, leftists, if that's what you guys wanted to happen. It's not going anywhere. No matter how far left you push it, we will get back into power some way, shape, or form, or we will die trying. And we will fight back against the CCP or we'll die trying. And that's not something that's going to be, I'm not, you know, this is a comedy show. Nothing is real. All this is imaginary. I have mental illness. Nothing I'm saying is even, this is a fake show. This is a fake show, fake everything. Nothing is real. It's all just a artistic form of self-expression and an autistic form of self-expression. But I'm mentally retarded. So I don't know if you guys remember that. So I'm insane, clinically insane, mentally retarded, whatever you want to call it. But again, I don't think that there's any end in sight. I think that we're going to continue to grow. So I'm looking forward to it. I really don't have a whole lot of negatives to give outside of what's happening now with that impeachment bullshit, which again, they're trying to do it because they don't want him to. That's how fucking scared of him they are. They're so scared of Trump that they want to like prevent him from running again. So I don't know. it's like every day it's like something new comes up and you have to fucking look at it and be like, whoa, what are the sides of all this? But I'm really interested to see what happens with some of this where Trump decides to set up shop, what social media. I say, dude, buy your own internet, make your own internet protocols, code your own platforms, buy your own server space. Dude, take advice from Pirate Bay, take advice from all these people, the torrent websites, all these people who have to fight shutdowns. Get all those developers. These guys are open source developers. They can build amazing shit all in one. Get them all in place. Make a clean mobile interface that I can interact with through the web, right? Maybe I can get on with a browser, like a Tor browser. Use Onion nodes, I would say, is really good. If you can make sure you have people who are controlling the entry and exit nodes and make sure that those nodes aren't compromised by law enforcement and stuff like that. So I think you got to do stuff like that. Otherwise, you're going to just basically like add delay to the time involved. You know what I mean? And you don't want to allow too much apathy. Because you don't want people to fall out of the movement, man. You want them to be pretty much firm in their standing. I don't foresee that happening. I think it's going to be huge, dude. It's going to be huge. You're going to see a lot of people come out of the closet of MAGA, come out of the liberal closet and identify themselves as Republicans. It's going to just get better and better. We're going to start creating our own supply chains and businesses. We already have our own supply chains in Texas. We already have that kind of going on in some of these red states. But, again, that election integrity stuff, the conservative activism, getting people out there to register to vote and, trying to, convince them on the merits of voting conservative and not, doing something that's unethical and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen. I want to get involved in it, and that's why I'm trying to do more shows. Maybe if you guys share the show, you can get people who listen to this and they kind of think, hey, he talked about this, and maybe we'll go to that. And so maybe listen to this. If you haven't listened to Jordan Peterson, you can listen to Jordan Peterson. Maybe you can listen to Candace Owens or some of these people like Steven Crowder and see where they push back on a lot of this stuff. So I think it's worth the while, but I think it's pretty much all I got today, folks. I just want to do a little light check-in on this Sunday. Got a lot of work to do and a lot of fucking stuff to do, but hopefully I want to make some daily. I want to do this daily. I think it's fun to do daily episodes, I think it's like, nice high volume shit, a lot of content. So we'll see what happens. No promises, and as usual, the contents of this episode are not legal advice, moral advice, ethical advice, therapeutic advice. I'm just really just an idiot, an idiot just rambling like a lunatic, and I think this is a comedy show, so I know it's not funny today, but usually I try to make it kind of funny, and so, it's comedy, so don't get your panties twisted in a bunch. I don't have anything else, but hey, if you like the show, share it. Tell your homies, tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your stepmom. Don't sleep with your stepmom. That's bad. That's gross. Stepmoms are not meant to be slept with unless they're hot. Just don't do illegal shit, man. Be a law-abiding citizen. Fucking stand up for your darn rights, fam. All right, guys. I'm going to fucking peace out. So, adios, mis amigos.